I remember even the day that I chose to leave, it was like, okay, this is that first step forward. And the fact that it even felt possible was like that spark of hope of like, I'm about to find me again. Welcome back to Let's Get Real with Dani. This one is going to get a little bit more raw and vulnerable. So, just a forewarning that, I have some notes because I need them to keep me grounded and just to make sure that, I'm sticking to the things that really matter to talk about. So, today, we're talking a little bit more about, relationships, self worth, and just how I've been making sure that at the center of it all, we focus on what is the right thing for me. And if I feel that I am not connected to that, how can I really make sure that that's kind of at the forefront of what I'm doing and the things that I'm doing, right? So, and there's a lot of things that I've gone through and some pretty like serious relationships that I've gone through and some not so great relationships. And that's kind of where we're going to tap into kind of how some relationships can form the way we feel about ourselves, how we view ourselves, and that we can make change, that the things that we go through do not determine exactly who we are and that we can grow from them, even if it feels very hard and very painful. Like, trust me, I've been through a lot of growing pains lately. But I just feel like, if I've been through this, it might just help someone else to hear more about it and to know that they're not alone. And this is all from my own personal experiences. This is not to be taken as like professional advice, right? So just more of like sharing the human experience and letting you in on the fact that like we're all going through shit, right? So let's share our experiences and maybe it can just help someone, right? So, you know, to dive into it, I've had many relationships in my life where I went into it. I would say they started because I didn't have any self worth and I sought out my worth through others. And I think it's not uncommon for that to happen, right? But my my need for a relationship was more, to prove to myself that I can be loved or whatever it is, right? So the one relationship that kind of sticks out the most is one where I felt like I felt a shift in my identity because of the things that were happening to me. But looking back now, I can all of the work that I've put into it, I can see exactly why I went through that, and how I could start to regain trust in myself. And it was all a matter of like trying to like not even knowing how to trust myself and just kind of putting my energy into seeing someone else who is broken and trying to help fix them when that is not a healthy way of doing things. Like it's if you're in it to just try and like help fix someone, then there's a difference between like working on things together as a in a partnership and trying to help fix someone who is very broken and mentally unstable and all of those things. So I was in the hardest relationship I was in. It was a lot of that, and I put a lot of me aside for someone else, and they suffered with a lot of mental illness, and I allowed that to be a thing. And I want to say this in a way, I allowed that to be like, oh, like I can help fix that. I can help them get through, the things that are inside that are causing them turmoil. But that the thing is like that was just not my job to do that. And I took that on, and that allowed me to stay in something that was, you know, emotionally, it broke me down. And it's interesting how, I saw in the beginning everything being like when it was fresh, it was like they're a terrible person. They are like, how could they ever be with someone? Like, it was like very, like, it felt like a personal attack. But the more that I worked on, you know, what I went through, it was like I was able to see, like, oh, they were going through a struggle and I was along for the ride. And now I can see it as like separating myself from like, you know, that was their insecurity coming out really loud, and I was the person in line to receive that, and I didn't value myself to say like I need to not be in this situation anymore because it's not healthy for me, and it was very toxic. And you know, when you evaluate that for yourself and say like I allowed myself to be in a situation where, at one point I was engaged to that person. This was years and years ago, but it was um it when you are in it and you're fresh out of it, it was like I was questioning myself a lot, like how did I let this happen to myself? How did I let myself get into this situation? A lot of the language and the things that I was hearing, the belittling, I was doing it now to myself because that was just the energy I was in. So that's just like what continued even without that person in my life. So, you know, I I remember even the day that I chose to leave, it was like, okay, this is that first step forward. And the fact that it even felt possible was like that spark of hope of like, I'm about to find me again. And I had lost her so she was so far gone, and I'd lost Danielle. And to try and come back to her was like, even still, this was over 10 years ago, that the ending of that relationship, the transformation of like where I'm at now, it's it's still a work in progress. And there's something that, my intuitive hypnotherapist that is like, you're never going to be fully healed. And I have multiple therapists, by the way. I have my intuitive hypnotherapist, I have my therapist, I've had multiple therapists over my lifespan in my adult life. And quick side tangent, like it's okay to have someone and have multiple people help you along the road, you know? At some points, it's like when you think about different times in our lives and different stages that we're in, like there's going to be different people that are along the way with you. And some people might last a season, they might last for a while, but especially like help and professional help. I've found that you don't know what's helpful until you try it. And the only reason I am where I'm at now in terms of like a stable, healthy relationship and feeling like I'm starting to see my self worth more often than not and trusting myself more is because of having the support of the people that know exactly how to do that. And in a way that is observing you and hearing you and able to guide you. Like, I don't even know where I would be if I didn't seek help. Like, I don't even know. So, we don't have to worry about like what if, like that used to be a common thing, like what if. But now it's just like, no, I just see where I want to go and I'm like, okay, who do I need to help me get there? Like who are the people that help me get to that point where I'm like I see myself, you know, married to a loving husband, and like that's what I see in my future. Whereas before it was like I'm never gonna get married. I'm never gonna like be happy in a relationship. Like that was like the reality of what like how I felt in my body. Like I just felt like that was never gonna be the case because of the situation that I've gone through. So I think all of those old feelings, those old thoughts that like I was living in them. I was believing that I didn't know how to trust myself. I didn't know what was right for me. And, I've never looked back at that moment when I decided to say like, no, I'm no longer going to be in this relationship. I never looked back and been like, oh, did I do the right thing? Because I knew deep down, I knew to my core that I needed that to happen. It was like, I was even asking myself, like, how did I let this go on for so long? How did I stay in it for that long? And the reality was, is like, I needed to figure it out. I needed to go through it, but I also didn't even know what was possible because I wasn't seeking help. I wasn't going to therapy while I was in that relationship because I think I was so scared of what the actual answer would be if I was to seek help. But I think that's exactly what I needed. But, all of that to say, like, we need to take the steps that we just really need to think about, like, what is it that I want? And am I in or on a path to that? And if I feel like I'm not on that path, what what could that like first step even look like? Right? Like what is that first step? And you know, the I think the first step that I had was like even just starting to talk about it, and sharing it with other people and telling people that I was, in a relationship where I was scared to go out with friends because I'd be criticized that I was doing something wrong, or I would stay home and just drink and eat and not, you know, be a participant in my own life. Like I was just scared to even be me for so long because I was scared it was upset someone or, cause something or an upset to happen. And it it feels like a totally different lifetime. Like talking about it now, I feel like I'm talking about someone else's life, um, which I guess could bring up two things. Like, one, that it's possible for you to be in a completely different life within the same lifetime, even though you've gone through so much and it feels like it's so heavy and it feels like it's the heaviest lift you're ever going to make and that it's impossible because like how could you even lift that off the ground and like move it and deal with it and process it? Like how could you, like there's that like it's crazy that that even happened, but like the only way that it did happen is because I took that heavy lift and I broke it down and I broke it down into the the things that I could manage at each point. Like you break it into increments where you're like, okay, maybe like if you're trying to lift like 300 pounds, you don't just go try and lift 300 pounds. I mean, you might try just to like see how it feels like when you go to like, say you're putting it on a bar, you like go to touch the bar. You're like, I really can't lift that. But as soon as you like strip the bar, maybe you're just like lifting the bar, you're like, oh, I can handle that. Okay, cool. And then like you kind of keep testing like how much can you handle until you can't. And then you just keep working at the smaller weight and start building strength there. And then you start testing heavier. Like it's the same thing with mental health where it's very hard to see what the weight is, right? Like it's very hard to see how much weight you're actually lifting because it's all internal, right? And that's I think the hardest part is like when it feels like everything there's just so much like it's there's so much there that you don't even know where to start. It's like that's where I found like having someone there to just help you sort it out is so helpful, and it's scary. I'm not going to say it was like a breeze, and that where I've come from and to where I am at now has been a walk in the park, and that it's just been like easy because it hasn't been. Um, and it's still very real. Like it's still, I'm still working on it. I still go to a therapist. I still have those moments where it lingers. But the thing is, I know that in order for me to keep moving forward, I have to keep putting in the reps to say, hey, like keep practicing that self-worth, keep practicing that self-trust and have a someone to lean on through it all. Like, we have our friends, we have our family, we have our partners, but they can only take so much as well. And by lifting the burden with someone else, by having someone else help you with that, It's it's so valuable. And it's all about having that focus. Like, what is the focus of working on these heavy lifts of, like, past relationships that you've gone through that have f- created this self belief that you're not worth it, you're unworthy, you know, you don't deserve love, and all of these things, and that someone's always going to choose someone else over you. Um, you know, it's it's okay to start thinking like, no, that isn't that isn't the way I want to feel. That isn't what I believe of myself. And even if you feel like there's that little spark, it can keep growing. It can keep becoming the thing that you want it to become. And it's it's very important to always look at the desire for it to be purely based on what you want, not what other people are saying you should do or the things that you've heard that you should do. It's like, what exactly is it that you want to feel that, like, you want to feel like you matter, right? Like, at the end of the day, that's how it feels for me, is like, I just want to feel like I matter. And until you feel that for yourself, it makes it really hard for you to tap into that with someone else. And, for myself, I've been, you know, even in my current relationship, still working on those things. And I don't think you need to, I think a good point to be made is like, you always want to figure everything out before you take the next step. And it's like, okay, well, maybe the next step is for you to figure it out in another situation or a new situation, or maybe it is doing it all on your own, like without someone as a partner there with you, and you're seeking out help and spending that time on your own. Like, it's everyone's journey is so different. So if you're like, this is what I need to do for me, that is the thing that you need to do, right? And it feels so like cliche and so like simple, right? It's like, just do what you want. But you do sometimes we just are so disconnected from actually what we're feeling and what we want, that we actually have to sit down and think about it, which is hard. And I've struggled with that. But if you're in a place of just like wondering, like, what am I doing, where how did I get here, then you're already on the right path, because that means that you're about to make a step towards change, because you're thinking about it, you're aware of it. And that is the most important thing, is like sticking to that awareness, and being curious about where you can go with it, right? So, you know, I didn't dive too deeply into my situation of, exactly what I experienced, because I don't want this to be about like what happened to me. I want it to be more about like, taking that control back about the situations that we're in do not define us. They help us see exactly what we have created for beliefs for ourselves, but it doesn't mean that those are beliefs that will last forever, because they can be broken down, because how others treat us, or, how we've created our beliefs around how others have treated us, does not need to dictate how we live our lives and how we grow. So that is kind of all I think I could dive into today. But if this feels like it really hit home for you, I'd love for you to send me a message, because, we're all humans just living our human lives, and sometimes it's really fucking hard. So if you need to just be like, hey, like, I just need uh I just need to be cheered on to take that first step. And by no means am I going to be someone who can provide professional help for you in terms of, therapy or anything like that. But I can at least cheer you on to say, hey, like, you can take that next step. And you're so worth it, because if you're feeling like you're ready for that step to like be like, hey, it's me, it's time for me, then it's definitely possible. So I appreciate you guys listening to something that's a little heavier, but I think it's something that we all need to hear because there's a lot of people going through stuff very quietly and feeling like they're alone, but you're not alone. And it's okay to be in a place where you're like, okay, I'm not okay with this and I need to make change and know that it's completely possible because you ask me you if you were to ask past me like even 8 years ago if they would believe what's happening right now in my life, they'd be like, "No freaking way." I'd be like, "Yeah, like legit we're happy." Like we're happy in a healthy relationship and we're excited about marriage. Like, not something I ever thought was possible for me. But when you take the steps to focus on yourself, um, your world just changes and the people around you become, you know, like they give you more energy and you feel like your value increases not because of what they're validating for you, but because of how you're truly giving back to yourself and they want to give to you too in that way. And yeah, we'll leave it at that. So thank you guys for listening and tune in next time for just, we're keeping it real. So thanks for listening and share this with someone if you feel like they might need to hear it. Okay, bye.